we have Tuck O'Brien from Land Bank Authority, and Land Bank is MDS is a fiscal sponsor of Land Bank Authority, which some of you are familiar with, and we've been promising more information about it for a little bit now. So we're excited to have Tuck here to talk a little bit more about this new program for Maine. And let's see, did I see, is Lee J also on the
Yeah,
call? Yeah, great. Lee J is on the board. You're the board chair, is that correct?
VJ is the chair of the commissioners. Yep. Well, thank you very much, Ross. That was really awesome, inspiring, and got me thinking a lot about the twists that you've been coming up with to solve some of the complex problems of launching a small business. Um, and I think we're trying to do the same thing with getting properties back to work in the state of Maine. So my name's Tuck O'Brien. I am the fairly new executive director of the Maine Redevelopment Land Bank Authority. I'm really psyched to be here today. Uh, we are a pretty new organization. We were started by legislation in 2022, designed to slightly model after the land bank movement across the country with some twists that are kind of building off of that and also unique to Maine. Melanie Sachs from Freeport was the legislation's author and lead sponsor. Um, we are a solutions-based organization, and what I like to say is we are to give a sense of what we're looking to work on is we're all about the redevelopment, revitalization, renewal, and we're independent under our statute. We operate separate. Our commissioners are all appointed by the governor, but we have a separate dedicated funding source, and we are not nested in any government structure of the state of Maine. Our mission is to serve the communities of Maine. And I'll get a lot more into that as I go through that, but fundamentally, that's the most important thing to know. We're here to figure out what the problems are in the different communities across the state and use our really diverse toolkit to try and work with them to figure out how to solve some of those problems. We're focused on the properties that are stuck. And we all know these type of properties, Sylvia and I live pretty close to Sissel and Daughters, and there's been a bunch of old pharmacies that were stuck for 15 years as Portland went through all these housing crisis and all these different market cycles. In any community in the state, everyone can think of a property that is stuck, that's either abandoned, worn out for a variety of reasons, dangerous, contaminated, or functionally obsolete. We are trying to not reinvent the wheel. We are trying to fill the gaps among all the existing groups that are doing amazing work in the state, specifically and tactically focused on project by project. Fundamentally, we are a resource. We can do a bunch of different things, from matchmaking and facilitation all the way down to property acquisition. This is our team. We have an amazing group of commissioners that represent a really broad skill set across the entire state. Lee J, of course, is here with me as well. And when we get into the question and answer, we can get him involved to that extent. But yeah, so all of my commissioners were appointed by the governor. They serve terms. They represent a broad array of expertise from real estate development, NGOs, planning, finance, and a geographic range across the state. Our partners, as so mentioned, we work extremely closely with MDF. They were just instrumental in our launch. They shepherded the process through until I got hired, and continue to work extremely closely with us on a very frequent basis. We also have ex officio members from several state agencies, DECD, Historic Preservation, Maine DOT, and Environmental Protection, DEP. As brownfield redevelopment and contamination is a big theme that we see across the state. So traditionally, the land bank structure was a lot more like a land store or an actual bank. So if you can imagine your traditional savings and loans, It was capitalized. There's money in there. It holds the money. It protects it. There's some interest. It grows, and then when you need to use it, you take it out. That was generally how land banks operated. If you think about places like Detroit after the last recession, there was tens of thousands of properties that were just sitting there, deteriorating, with no market or ability to get them back into circulation. And so these land banks traditionally started with a big portfolio of properties that were like problematic that they started with, and they would mostly serve a property management function until the conditions changed. So they would stabilize the properties, clean them up, secure them, and wait for something to happen to get those back into circulation. We're a little different. The folks at the Center for Community Progress call us a Land Bank 2.0. We have a whole bunch of tools and that are designed to be able to help communities all across the state. So the way I like to break it down is we have a redevelopment capacity and a traditional land banking capacity. So from a redevelopment standpoint, we, depending on what the gap is, we can do everything from providing technical assistance and planning. We will have grant funding programs down the road. We have the ability to issue bonds. We have bonding capacity. We are going to be very focused on brownfield redevelopment and figuring out where the gaps are there. And also matchmaking and connections. And for statewide, since we are a little bit different, we're hoping that we can provide facilitation to just connect folks within and without the state who might not otherwise get introduced to each other to facilitate problem solving. Again, we are here to be creative. I think Ross's presentation was a great lead in to like the type of things we're trying to do to think different. We are very flexible. We don't have a certain lane that we're sticking in. We really are out there to listen and figure out what needs to happen and then build an organization around doing that. And also, we're going to be patient and have perseverance. These properties are challenging. They are extremely difficult. Some of them are extremely stuck, and we're going to be around. We are that patient partner that might need to wait a couple development cycles for things to be ready, that we continue to tick off obstacles to help move things forward until the property is ready to be put to use. We also have all of the capabilities of a traditional land bank, from property acquisition to banking. If we will at some point have the ability to maintain, stabilize, and hold certain properties. One of the things that we're going to get right after is working on clearing. A lot of these properties have really tricky title situations, from tax foreclosures or murky sales and deed issues. And so we are going to develop capacity to be a real tool for those. Some municipalities in our state just don't have the ability. They have a lot of property, but there is maybe 1 or 2 staff members. They're never going to start their own land bank. They just need someone to come in and help them do what the community is looking for with the property. On the flip side to that, we are hoping to be a technical resource for communities that want to start their own municipal land bank. This is something that I've heard from a lot of communities that they're really interested in. Stanford, Maine was kind of our model for success doing this work. But there's other communities that have reached out to me to try and figure out how they can do it. And I think with the communities that have that capability, once they get started, they will be able to focus a lot more on individual single-family homes that are within that community and be a lot more focused and on the ground in those communities. We are going to be more statewide and be working on different projects in individual communities across the state. And so hopefully over time, we are the resource that communities go to when they are trying to launch their own land bank as well. So one of our commissioners, who's from Heartland, Maine, I think this is a great quote that we are about putting properties back to work. We are kind of agnostic about what the final use is. Obviously, we have an incredible affordable housing and just housing in general constraints in the state right now, but we aren't an affordable housing organization per se. we are kind of end use agnostic. It really is going to be dependent on the community and the market to figure out what that property is going to be used for. We are just there to figure out how to remove the obstacles to get it there. If you think about Maine's history, and I think we have a pretty good representation from across the state today. Our initial estimate is we have probably 600 properties across the state that kind of fit on the larger scale commercial and industrial side that fit our statutory requirements. And I think that makes a lot of sense given Maine's rich history of value-added natural resource extraction and how our population centers were created. Here's just a list across the state of places that are either we've either talked to or that people have reached out to us for, and you'll see there's really a broad from Kittery all the way to Madawaska. There's a really broad different types of projects that we will get involved in. And then at a more granular scale, gas stations, pharmacies, old parking lots that have contamination issues, lay down yards, things like that nature. The places where we aren't going to be getting involved, as I said before, we're all about the is greenfield development. We're all about reusing infill. We are not going to be working on former military bases. That's kind of a separate track. But those kind of our two largest constraints. So think about us for those properties that have been productively used, that were supporting communities, that were providing value to the state, that just stopped doing it. And that's where we can come in to help.
Chuck, there is a question that came directly to me. I can wait to the end unless you'd like me to interject it. It's along this lines. Does Lambic work with only municipally owned properties or privately owned properties as well?
Yep. We don't have any restrictions. I would say that our charge is to serve Maine communities. We aren't really focused on who owns it. And in fact, a lot of the properties we're going to end up dealing with, people are probably not going to be too sure exactly who owns them. There's going to be this complicated abandonment, tax foreclosure, sale, not sale, murky background that's kind of, in a lot of cases, going to be the reason the property is stuck. So whether or not the property is owned by a municipality already, there will be a portion of our work that's going to be surplus properties. There's going to be a portion of our work that's going to be communities where a private property owner is like, I don't know what to do with this. Can you help? We've talked to several communities that know who owns the property, and the person just kind of is like checked out and is looking for an exit strategy out of the property. That's a good fit as well. There really is no box for how we get involved with a specific project.
Thanks.
So we basically, so since I've started in May, what we've been doing is trying to get our website up, trying to get our bank account and all those basic startup stuff. And then I spent the summer traveling around the state and meeting with different communities and different organizations. So I've been all the way from speaking with folks in Kittery and Kennebunkport, all the way up to Madawaska, Fort Fairfield, Rumford. And what I say to everyone is our office is the entire state of Maine. If you want to meet with me or you want to have a conversation, let me know when and where, and we'll be there. I'm really excited. We have a lot more communities to get to. I have heard so many interesting stories. A lot of times I just show up, we go and we get in a car and we drive around and we look at specific properties and hear stories and brainstorm ideas of how we can get involved. And we're really using that, the commissioners and I are using that to figure out how we're going to develop our focus, to make sure that from the get-go, it's based on what the needs are in the field right now, whether it's a affordable housing developer, industrial board, board of selectmen, or the municipal staff. We've heard a lot of different things, for sure. Like there's no one size fits all in Maine. Like each of our communities is very unique and different. But there are some themes that have really come out. The Maine downtown, whether it's the most rural community or our larger cities, the downtowns really are a significant resource and where a lot of energy is. I think initially people were like, oh, rural, urban, but town centers are were important. in most of our communities across the state. And that's where we hear a lot of projects, folks want to get projects moving, is in those downtown centers. Of course, housing, how we do different types of housing to fit different needs. And the housing needs across the state aren't the same. Whether it's accessible housing in certain places, senior housing, market rate housing, single family homes, apartments, it's really different. And so I think we are looking to be a way to facilitate different types of housing across the state, whether it's subsidized, not subsidized, not really important for us. Financing, construction costs, remediation, common hurdles, interest rates are challenging for folks right now. And we are an organization that's going to be laser focused on working on those issues, whether it's coming up with innovative solutions, common sense solutions, or just rolling up our sleeves and getting in there. We're going to be focused on that stuff because that's where the need is. There's plenty of organizations doing incredible work. And again, we're not here to replicate that. We are here mostly to fill and supplement. The tour continues. So pictures down below are from Holton, Wiscasset, Madawaska, and me driving somewhere across the state of Maine. But I know Nancy is on this call. We had a great conversation. If you want to talk to me or you have any ideas or anything else, please, my contact information will be here, and my cell and my personal email still, but we're getting there. But I am excited to come talk to you. And finally, you're all invited. We're doing our launch event in East Millinocket on October 4th in collaboration with the town of East Millinocket and the industrial board. It will be our kind of first project, working with them on the reuse of the steam plant that's in the bottom of this picture here. Site tours, lunch, and it'll be a good chance to meet other folks and learn more about what we're doing. So, thank you. Excited to get some questions and hear more from folks. So,
thanks so much, Tuck. I really appreciate this. What questions do we have? Feel free to pop them in the chat or just take yourself off mute.
So have you been up to the Down East area at all? I'm not sure.
Many times. I used to work up in Lubec and Eastport, but not yet in this position. So let me know when, and I'll come up.
Tomorrow. Oh wait, tomorrow's Saturday. It's the weekend.
I've done pretty well getting across from Rumford up to Madawaska, but there's huge chunks I still haven't got to. And that's why I actually, was so excited to get on this call. So I'd love to organize a time to come up, maybe hit a few communities, do a roundtable, look at a bunch of sites.
Denise is in Calais, and Denise, I popped Tuck's email in the chat there, and then obviously it's on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm writing it down now, so we can email each other or Zoom, and we'll figure out a time that you and I can meet up and meet some of the other folks here in our municipalities.
And
Great.
Cara says she's down for a Down East tour as well. Cara's in Ellsworth.
Yeah, we work closely with Grossmart Maine as well, and I was just speaking with Nancy Smith, who is fairly recently relocated to Ellsworth. So we were talking about some things going on in Ellsworth.
And I'm part of that workshop. So they're holding the workshops for Grossmart, and so I'm part of those workshops as well.
Tamara had a good question. Yeah, that's it. And anyone that wants to be there is welcome. It's really what you need and we're here to help you. And so whatever works for you guys, I'm all in for. I have met with developers on their properties to answer questions, usually facilitated by the town. I've met when I was up in the county, we had some tours with like local economic development interests, town councilors, and the regional planning entity. So there's no rules.
So Tamara's just asking how do you get Tuck and get this process started in your communities? Just reach out and he'll be there. And then Mia sent another question directly to me. Can you give an example of a project you're working on and the assistance being provided with the understanding that you are a new organization? And they are brand new, but Tuck, I'll let you.
Yeah, well, definitely. And I'll give you, there's 4 examples that are pretty different. And I'll leave the towns out because since we're new, we haven't actually done any of this stuff yet. But in one community, well, like East Millinocket, because I already said it, they have this unique opportunity. They have a tenant interested in moving into their steam plant, but there's some complicated title issues. They didn't have funding set aside to solve them. So we said, hey, we're here for that. So we're working with them to fix that so they can get that tenant in there. In another community, there's a town property in the downtown that they're looking to do an artist residence project consistent with the comprehensive plan. And they needed a partner for grants and to help facilitate getting that moving because they have some limited capacity. So we're hopefully going to jump in there. On a much more complicated level, there is a former utility generation facility on about 40 acres in Midcoast that has some significant brownfield and other issues. It was ready to move forward until the Great Recession, and they're trying to get it moving again. And so there's any number of brownfield tax issues, planning that they need help with there. In another case, there's a property that used to be a agricultural processing facility that got bought out by a larger national entity. They mothballed it, tore the building down. It's just sitting there, and the community's looking for help, reaching out. They're pretty sure that the organization doesn't want the property anymore, but they're so big they're having trouble getting anyone to talk to them about how to get it moving. So we're going to probably help them facilitate that conversation. A great story from Michigan that I heard what they're working on is the Nature Conservancy took over 40 acres. They only needed 12 for some dune restoration project. The rest of the site was a former large industrial property with a couple abandoned houses on it. And so the Nature Conservancy reached out to the land bank to take ownership of those additional acres with the understanding and the requirement that they go out for RFP and hold the property until a developer was found to do a project that they identified as a need, and have the patience to wait until they can get that done. So there are a few examples.
Thanks, Tuck. That's great. That's helpful. What other questions are there?
DJ.
Yeah, if I may, I'll just jump in. And, I think Tuck has been a great advocate for us and a huge help. One of the things that has been difficult to get our hands around is, yes, we're ready to serve and try to get some projects off the ground. It has, and with the thanks of MDF especially, it has taken us 2 years to get organized. Before we even were able to hire Tuck as our executive director. We had bylaws that needed to be developed. We had business applications that needed to be put together. We had hired a Drummond and Woodson law firm to assist us with all of the legal aspects of putting this together. So while the legislation was great and everybody expects, oh, there's a new bill, there's a new committee, and they're going to be up and running, it has taken us 2 years to get this thing to where we're at today. So I say we do have a lot on our plate. Tuck has done a great job getting that going, but also be patient with us, please, in some aspects, because we're still organizing. We do receive, I think Tuck kind of mentioned it, but we do get an allocated amount of money through the demolition program at DEP. So we do have a continuous stream of funding that comes through that helps us, and we're certainly going to be looking at other funding sources as well. The Maine Bond Bank has reached out to us and wants to talk about the bonding capabilities that we will have. So as Tuck mentioned, I mean, we've got a lot of flexibility and a lot of things that we can do. It's just getting up and running. And I can tell you that from the authority or the committee's standpoint, we have met monthly for the 2 years that we've been doing this, and have subcommittees that have been working on a lot of this stuff. So there's a lot of energy and a lot of work that's being put into it, but it's taking us a little bit longer than we even thought to get ourselves to where we're at today. And eventually, and Tuck has talked with us, he's not going to be our only staff person. We'll be ramping that up as our needs are trying to be met in various areas of this program. So
Thanks so much for that reminder, Lee J. That's important, and that perspective. And Tamara does say we understand progress takes time. So this is a really exciting opportunity for Maine, and we appreciate all of your all's dedication to it. Any final questions? Is there...
Yeah, sure. So the funding sources that you are acquiring to be able to help communities, are there requirements or limitations that you have to meet to qualify for what you guys do? Or, there's different like your AMIs and other aspects of the community. Sometimes you don't qualify for some of the stuff out there.
So BJ, feel free to jump in here, but my take on that is not yet. There will be. One of the things we're really working on is like, what are the KPIs? What are the screening mechanisms? I think our approach, and we're still working on this project screening side of it, is really to get going and figure out some small projects we can do to help, and then start to build off of that, because the commission has a lot of energy to get going because they've been working so long. But I see us having grant programs that are going to have, RFPs and screening and this, that, and the other thing. But we also can be very tactical to solve problems when the right project comes along. And that's why we have such a broad, talented commission to help be like, hey, this is something we want to do. We have a lot of flexibility in our statute to go into those projects and get things moving. But I think if you saw us in 5 years from now, we'd have 5 programs or so that, a brownfield program, a abandoned properties program, a special projects program. But right now, it's kind of, I bring the commission ideas, and if it's like the right scale, we can get involved with it if that makes sense.
Yeah, and on the funding side, through the legislation there was nothing that tied our hands to that. Again, we get funded through DEP tipping fees for demolition. The first year, we're somewhat a public entity. It's no secret. The first year, our bank account had 1.8 million in it. And we certainly haven't spent that, although Tuck is getting paid very well for doing all the great work that he's doing for us. But we're also looking at our budgeting coming up and requesting our next round of funding from the state. So the good thing is it's been slow coming to find projects. The bad thing is that we're trying to figure out which projects make the most sense for us to get going. But also being slow like that, it's helping us bankroll some of this money that we haven't had to spend yet. And so that's really helping us build our bank account to be able to dig into some of these projects, and hopefully be able to purchase, well, we don't want to be the owner of the property, but be the intermediary of purchasing properties that we can transfer back out to the private sector or public sector if need be.
Yeah, and I think 1.8 is an awesome nest egg for operations, but we would really like to build that 10x, 20x with federal funds and other foundations to really help partner with communities to go after that money, which are going to have a lot more requirements. And one of the things we want to become experts in is understanding how to leverage that money with our community partners.
Great, Tuck. Thank you so much, Tuck and Lee J. I really appreciate you both joining us this morning, and Ross as well. This is kind of a special extended Friday monthly Zoom for us, and a little bit more formal with 2 presentations, 2 excellent presenters. Feel free to stick around if you have any other questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but again, really appreciate